All right, y'all. So let's go and get into the quick and dirty version of installing Security Onion. So we're going to start off by logging into the mini PC I have running Windows Pro, well, Windows 11 Pro. And let's go and restart it. I'm doing the restart so we can jump right into the BIOS. Now, if you notice here, I'm running PyKVM. Check out the future video on how that works. Now, once we load the BIOS, you'll see here it is a Nuke Box 7. Let's jump right into security. And from security, we're going to do secure boot. Now, secure boot, we're going to disable. My experience is that sometimes the security boot will mess up a new install. So we turn that off by default. Well, I turn it off by default the way I do things. And then we go right into the boot section. Now, from boot order, boot option priorities, we want to change number 1. Make sure that is set to the USB that we have. And what you'll notice here, UEFI does not say what we normally look for, which is like USB. It says PMAP. Now, that is something that was new to me, but now we know that does stand for USB. Second option we'll set as a window loader, just in case something happens and I don't lose my mind trying to figure out how to fix it. All right, now it goes into Ventoy. I have a lot of ISOs on here, but we're looking for Security Onion 2.4.40, and then we'll boot into Grub 2 mode. I have not tried normal mode in a while, but we'll go with Grub 2. All right, so here we're going to select the very first entry. Please do not try doing desktop. You need to first install the actual appliance itself before doing the desktop. Hit yes, or type in yes, then we give it a username, and then we'll go and give it a password, and repeat that, and that is it. We're off to the races. We'll let the script run. We're going to fast forward through most of this. All right, so now we'll log back in. We'll provide the password, and from here we'll be presented the screen about welcome to Security Onion. We'll hit yes, and then we'll go to install, and then we'll go right down to standalone. Now I'm doing standalone because I am not doing distributed setup, and I want to install agents. Well, from here we'll accept the agreement, and then just go through the default settings. Now the host name you do want to change if you are going to have multiple nodes. I'm going to have only one, but I still added a 1 on the end of this just in case I change my mind later. Let's go and set up a short description of this node. We're just going to place in here master node. It'll be our primary, and then from here we'll see our actual interfaces for our NIC card. Now I'm gonna select the very first one labeled as link up. There are 3 for me because I have a USB NIC installed, but for right now we'll just focus on the very first up card. And then I'm gonna select DHCP. You can do static. I'm doing that because I'm going to use my router to set the static IP, which provides a DHCP anyway. And then we'll go and hit yes. I am sure I want to do a DHCP. Now, this is where we select our monitoring interface. Now, I'm going to select the second one that says up. One thing to keep in mind, though, even though it says up does not mean it's assigned an IP address, and that's the way you want it. If you have an IP address assigned, it will throw an error for the monitoring port. I don't know why, but I just found it out through multiple installations. So if your installation does fail to install, and you get a Linux IP addressing, some kind of error like that, it just means that your secondary, your monitoring interface is assigned an IP. You have to remove that, and it'll give you a chance to fix the error. All right, so from here we're going to go ahead and accept, and then we'll take the default settings here, and then now we'll create the actual email address account that the administrator account would use. Now this one, I have never seen a setting that shows communications can be sent from Security Onions, but maybe it's in there somewhere. I just select an email that I use personally. It is not my Gmail. Is one I host myself. So now we'll set the password up, and go ahead and do your password again. And that's pretty much it. We'll go ahead and say we'll use the IP address. If you want to use hostname or some other way of identifying your web interface, go for it. I'll stick to the basics and do the IP address. All right, you say yes, we want to allow access from a specific CIDR block. We're going to use the default CIDR block for my default network, which is the 192.168.1.0/24, which is in CIDR block notation. All right, and There you have it. We have the summary of our setup. We'll hit select yes and move forward from here. All right, so it's going to go through the install. We're going to see an error pop up. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this. I've installed this a number of times, and I do get the error. I have no idea how to correct the error, but I know the error is pretty benign. I'll go and pull up the file root/error .log. Oh, forgot. I got to change the permission. Do sudo. But yeah, let's pull that file up, and will show you what the error says. So it says something about connection error or connection activation failed, unknown error. When I looked at the second log, which I'm not going to show here, it did specify something about UTC time. So it has something to do with timing, but it did not affect the system. So let's go and log out and then log back in, and it'll bring you up to your home directory for your user that you created in the first portion of the installation. All right. And the reason we're doing this is because we have to ensure that it did install properly. And if it did so, you will see this, a web interface specified, ready to boot into. All right, let's flip over to our browser. Now I'm using my local machine's browser to log into Security Onion, but you can use any computer on the same network. All right, so this is the certificate. We're going to go click through this, advance, hit proceed. Certificates are not in a trusted store, so you have to accept that risk. And then we'll log right into the Security Onion interface using the email we just set up in the just a few moments ago. All right, so we are now on the landing page, the overview tab of Security Onion, and we have dashboard. Downloads is probably the most important part because that's where your agents are going to be found. But there is a secondary location which I use, and that's Elastic Fleet. But if you're looking at this, you see it says allow network access through the firewall. Very important because your agents will not be will not be able to speak to your installation without that being set. All right, so let's go back and actually install the desktop now. Now, the desktop is going to be installed because if you're interested in using the tools such as Network Miner or Wireshark, it already comes pre-installed on the desktop installation portion. And the way we do this is we just go back to our home directory, go to Security Onion folder. Within there, you have the so-desktop-install. We're going to run that. And oops, forgot to do the sudo. Let's go and put sudo in front. Double exclamation point just repeats the last command presented. So you don't have to retype it yourself. All right. And let that install. And here we go. We're on the desktop. We're going to log in. Beautiful. And this is, I believe, built on Fedora. So you're familiar with Red Hat. You should feel pretty comfortable here. And then these are the applications. So like I said, Network Miner and Wireshark, and then just Terminal. All right. From there, let's jump back in to our Security Onion. And let's take a look at some of these stats of the system. So as I said, this is a mini PC I'm running on, which has just enough to run the minimum requirements for a standalone. And you can see here, the swap is hurting. It is using quite a bit of swap space, meaning that the RAM and the resources on this box actually are pretty intense and you may want to go with something more than 16 gigs of RAM, maybe 32, 64, if you have a computer laying around that can do that. All right, so from here, now we looked at that. Everything is running as expected. We have the OK at the top right. Let's flip over to our downloads again. Take a look at which installs we can do. So we have Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and then Mac OS ARM 64. Good selection here, but like I said, I don't use this. I jump into Elastic Fleet. Now, if you're physically located where the target machine is, feel free to download from there. But anyway, so let's jump over into Elastic Fleet, and we're going to do a remote installation of the agent. And this is going to be started by selecting Add Agent. And then from here, we'll select the type of host we're going to be targeting, and the policy goes with that. Endpoints initial is probably the best selection. It is going to be what most of us are looking for. We're going to make sure enroll in Fleet is there. Standalone, I have not run from this before. And then we're going to do the install Elastic Agent on your host. We'll capture the command line instructions needed, and we'll go and do the clipboard to do that. We'll paste it right into the target machine. Now for me, the target machine is the local machine I'm logged into. But before we do that, don't forget we have to change the firewall settings. Now I'm going to go through each of these and just update and add my cider block range into all of these. But the more specific one you need to update is elastic underscore agent underscore endpoint. This is the one that will block or stop your security onion from receiving calls from the or receiving information from the agent if you do not modify it. All right, so once we get that, we will go ahead and jump back over to the box that we're going to be installing the agent on. All right, so here we have it. We have the host machine that we are going to be installing the agent onto. Now, I did previously run this install command, but it broke when it came. So understand the first portion of the command we paste in is actually the downloading of the agent, and the second portion is the execution to start it or install it, right? So it breaks if you do not place -- insecure within the execution line. Remember, I'm going to place Y there to accept the notice and move on. And now we have our first agent installed. Simple as that. Now, I do want to also take just a moment here to show you how to install an agent from Proxmox. So if you're following along in my videos, you're following along in my setup, you're going to have a Proxmox server as well, or you may have already decided to have one. So let's go and show you what needs to be done for that. One thing I do want to point out though is that I currently have an incorrect policy, which the general knows, and what you'll notice is that under integrations, there are quite a few entries here, but they're not focused around the actual box like a Windows or a Linux box. And that's why I said earlier, the best one to use is endpoint underscore initial, and that will ensure that you get the logs you're expecting, like security log events. Hey, to make sure that it is working though, you click on the logs tab and you will see entries. If you don't see entries, there's something wrong and you need to fix that. All right, so let's jump into my Proxmox. I'm going to do the Kali box. And what you'll notice here is that I run the same command as I did on the local host. I modified the execution line to include insecure, which means that it should, well, to include -- insecure, which means it should have no problems at all installing. What I come to find out when it hangs for long periods of time, I realized, hey, there's something wrong. Proxmox does come with a gateway. Maybe there's an issue with the firewall. So I finally realized let's go over to the firewall settings and update a firewall rule, really add a firewall rule. And this firewall rule that we're adding is going to be the out type of rule. We're going to give it the port that is trying to communicate over, which is 8220. And the rest of it, I think is pretty standard. So that's pretty much it. Once we do that, we flip back over to our Kali box and we run the command again. And wouldn't you know it, it populates in the fleet view. And now we have a total of 5 agents running. And that's pretty much it, everyone. So we've done it. We've installed our very first security onion. We've also installed the agent on our target machines. The next video is going to be about configuration. Well, not really configuration, but more or less understanding how policies work, how to introduce a new policy to improve the type of logging that you're expecting to get back on these machines, as well as understanding the marketplace, or that, well, I'll call it a marketplace, that comes along with Security Onion. The community is great. They have a lot of additions you could add on here. So make sure you tune in for the next video to cover that. And if you're interested, there is also another video coming out where we installed the other SIEM, which is the Waza SIEM, which used to be a part of Security Onion, but now they have broken off into their own application. All right, y'all. So appreciate it. Until next time, let's continue the journey together. Bye.